All right, we're live. Good morning, I guess afternoon now. But this, good morning, evening, afternoon, night, whatever it is. I'm glad you could join us right now. We don't have any viewers, but I'm just going to go last week of Pray Like Jesus. And I've really enjoyed getting to go through this book with you guys and just go through some of the things that God is teaching me through it. It's been really good. So I've really enjoyed this process. Kind of sad it's coming to a close, but looking forward to what we're going to be doing next. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump straight into scripture. I don't have like an opening story or anything like that. So we're going to be in Luke 23:33 through 34, and then verse 46 as well. So starting in Luke 23, verse 33, it says this: When they arrived at the place called the Skull, they crucified him there. And this is the crucifixion of Jesus. So when they arrived at the place called the Skull, they crucified him there, along with the criminals, one on the right and one on the left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, because they do not know what they are doing." And they divided his clothes and cast lots. Then people stood watch. The people stood watching, and even the leaders were scoffing. He saved others; let him save himself, if this is God's Messiah, the chosen one. The soldiers also mocked him. They came offering him sour wine and said, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." An inscription was above him: "This is the king of the Jews." And then we jump to verse 46. So this is after all the mocking and all the beating and the crucifixion, everything like that. Jesus says this, and Jesus called out with a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I entrust my spirit." Saying this, he breathed his last. So what just happened here basically is this is after Jesus had already been beaten and tortured and everything like that, and he carried his cross up to a place called the Skull, and they crucified him there. And while he was on the cross, they mocked him and saying, "If you're really the Son of God, why don't you get yourself down?" All of that. So he openly being mocked, abused, all of that. And what is Jesus' response in verse 46? One of his responses is, "Father, forgive them, because they do not know what they are doing." And then the last thing he says is, Jesus called out with a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I entrust my spirit." So, Father, I surrender, in other words, instead of entrust, surrender my spirit. He fully gives himself to God. And so if you're anything like me, in moments of stress or hardship, I can be short with people. Someone could be talking to me, and if I'm stressed out about something or preoccupied with something, I'm not listening. I'm not present at all. So if I'm stressed about something and Megan's talking to me, I'll be rude. I'll be short. And that's not a good thing. I'm not saying that as like, you guys should do that too or anything like that, but that's just how I act. And that's not good. And that's not how I should react in moments of stress. But let's kind of go back and see how Jesus got to this situation and how he reacts in moments of stress, because this stress is far more than anything I could ever imagine being. But Jesus is in this. So let's kind of see how he got there and then his reaction after. So Jesus left heaven. He lived a sinless life. He loved people perfectly. Jesus fed those who were hungry, healed countless people who were suffering, and delivered those oppressed by demons. And perhaps most importantly, he shared with anyone who would listen to the truth about how we can live in relationship with God. Despite all of this, the world hated him and sentenced him to death on a cross. So if you go back, Jesus doesn't do anything wrong. So if we're looking at the cross and like someone walked by and is like, "How did that guy get up there?" No one would be able to point and be like, "He did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong," because he didn't do anything wrong. All he did was heal people and love people and share the good news with people. All of those things. He didn't bring any of that upon himself. That was actually the choices of our sin and the ones before us, and people who were saying that they were religious people and they were saying that they loved God, but in reality they didn't. And Jesus called them out on that. So these are all decisions of other people that led Jesus to this. And so I think a lot of the times, not all the time, because there's suffering in this world that we don't make a choice that happens, or it just happens. But a lot of times, things that don't go our way or things that are bad in our lives, a lot of times we could bring that upon ourselves just by bad choices we made. It's like in high school, I got grounded for a long time, and it was hard on me, but I made the choice to sneak out. I made the choice to lie to my parents about where I was and the things that I was going to be doing. So instead of I'm going to be hanging out with my friends, I was hanging out with my friends, but we were out until like 5 in the morning, being stupid, doing stupid things, messing with people's houses and cars and like pranking them. So I got grounded for that. That was a decision I made. But Jesus didn't make any bad decisions to lead him to this point. These are all decisions that we made. And even decisions that I make that bring bad things, I get angry and I'm frustrated. And I'm like, man, I don't deserve this. This is ridiculous. And Jesus has a right to feel that way here, but he doesn't. You see that Jesus immediately, through all of this, he says, Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. Instead of calling down curses upon his murderers, he prayed for the very people who put him on the cross. Jesus had earlier taught that we are to love our enemies, and now he was providing an example in the ultimate sense. So that's how Jesus responds in moments of stress. He prays for the people who are causing that. He prays for his oppressors. He prays for those people. And a thing that we're going through on Wednesday nights that Jonathan is taking us through is the fruits of the Spirit. We talked about love last week. And right here, I'm not going to be teaching on the fruits of the Spirit, but just something that I noticed is that Jesus is exercising self-control. And not only is he exercising that outward, but he's also exercising self-control inward in his own mind and heart. So I think a lot of times we think someone is exercising self-control, like, man, they were really calm in that, but inside they're like just cursing the people who have them upset or whatever. Like their heart is full of hatred, even though they may not show it on the outside. But Jesus is inward and outward, inwardly and outwardly exercising self-control here. I think a lot of times when we get stressed and we're really angry and we react and we lash out, after we calm down our excuses, like, that's not really how I feel, or that really wasn't me, except that it really was us. Our words and our whole hearts flow, and our whole lives flow out of our hearts, according to Matthew 12:34 and Proverbs 27:19. So the truth is that our actions, the way we react in that stress, is an outpouring of our heart. So if you're in a moment of stress and you lash out at people and you're yelling at people, and you say, that really wasn't me, I would, and I'm talking to myself here too, I would really take just a heart check for a second. Maybe it really was you. Maybe that's really how you are, but you just didn't have any stress to bring that out. And so I think a lot of times too, God can put us in moments of stress to show us where our hearts really are and how we're really following him. Or if we're immediately lashing out, we're not practicing self-control, we're not practicing love. And Jesus is perfectly practicing both of those right now. So I'm going to read this straight from the books. I think this is really cool. It says, as Jesus hung on the cross, the worst was yet to come. By the nails, the thorns, and the spear, he suffered unimaginable physical pain. But he was yet to endure the spiritual torment associated with being relationally cut off from the Father and enduring the punishment for the sin of the world. And as he anticipated this, because of his perfect love for the lost, even as they mocked him and they gambled for his clothes, he prayed for sinners. Father, forgive them because they do not know what they are doing. Jesus prayed most immediately for the Roman soldiers who held the hammers and nails. More broadly, however, the prayer applied to all those who put Jesus on the cross, Israel's religious leaders, the Jewish people, and even you and me. Jesus didn't pray this way because he knew it was the right thing or because he needed to check off the prayer box, the prayer for others box before he died. He prayed because he had such a deep love for people and a profound passion for the lost. There was nothing he'd rather have done in that moment. It was an expression of his heart, and we can be certain that Jesus' prayer was effective in bringing many to faith in him. So when I read that is like heart-wrenching for me to read. One, because that's just so cool how Jesus, despite that torture and the suffering, he prayed over us. He prayed immediately he prayed for the people who were putting him on the cross, but in like a more broad sense, he was praying for us because of our decisions, because of the things that we did and have done and will do, that Jesus knew about, and he died for those people to hear this. I'm gonna. Okay, I think we're back. I don't know if I lost any of you there or not. But what I was saying is, like, the thing that challenges me the most, the hardest part about this for me, is I'm called to be like Jesus. And Jesus is hanging on a cross, dying for us, and he's praying for us in the process. And I think about, where is my heart for God's people? Where is my heart for the gospel and sharing that? Where is my heart for seeking out the lost and sharing the gospel with them? And I'll be honest, it's not nearly where Jesus is here. He's dying for those people because of all of our decisions, because of them. He's being beaten and tortured, and he's still praying for them, and he still pursues them. He still shares the love of Jesus with them. He still shares his love with them in that moment. And I'm fairly certain that if I was in that same situation, I don't think I'd be praying for those people. I'd be praying for myself or whatever. I would be upset. But that's not what Jesus does here. And that's just a challenge for you guys, for me. How are you reacting in stressful situations that aren't even on the scale of this? But how are you treating people in moments where you're going through something hard? And how has God used hardships that you faced to help others see Christ loving you? So how are you showing Jesus' love to others when you're in a hard time? And so the last thing, I want to look at verse 46 again and talk about that for a second, and then we'll be done. So verse 46, and Jesus called out with a loud voice, Father, into your hands I entrust my spirit. Saying this, he breathed his last breath. So Father, into your hands I entrust my spirit. To be a Christian means fully surrendering our lives to God. Yet sometimes, though we've sung such songs as I Surrender All and things like that, and we say things like, I've given my life to Jesus, and we're happy to give our life to Jesus, except in certain areas maybe where we don't want to give that up. We feel comfortable, so we don't really want to give that to Jesus. So such as like entertainment, so like video games or music or the movies we're watching, whatever it is, maybe that's not glorifying God, but that's different because it's entertainment. So I can't give that up to God, but I'll give you everything else. Or romantic relationships is like, oh, we're not crossing this boundary, so that means we're still doing what we're supposed to be doing, and I'm not going to give that relationship to God because I care about this person too much to ever give that relationship to God because I'm scared of what he'll do with it. Or maybe it's time. Jonathan talked about time last week. Maybe we're not willing to sacrifice our time to give that to God because it's his to begin with. Every second we have on this earth is because of God. So giving our time to God only seems right, only seems like what we should do with it. So if you're selfish with your time and you want to do what you want to do, maybe God's calling you to give him some time for you to serve others or for you to spend time with him. Whatever that is, maybe you need to give up some time to follow Jesus better. Or maybe money. Maybe like if you're like me, money is a stressful thing and you want to hold on to it with everything you have and you don't want to give it away or you don't want to use it to further the kingdom of God. So if there's maybe that's something in your life that you are stressing about, maybe God's calling you to surrender those things. And so I just have a couple questions for us before we just finish out our last session of Pray Like Jesus. So the first one is, when have you suffered and when you didn't deserve it? And how was your response a reflection of Jesus? The next thing is, how has God used hardships you faced to help others see Christ's love in you? And then the last one is, what is God calling you to surrender to him today? So I just want you to think about those things as we close out. Just how are you reacting whenever you're stressed or whenever there's hard things going on in your life? How are you reacting? Are you short with others? Are you worried about yourself? Or are you using that time to show the love of Jesus to others? Are you using that time to bring people to Christ? And the other thing is, how are you holding back certain ways in your life? How are you holding back certain things that you don't want to give up to Jesus? And how can you start doing that? How can you give up your time? Maybe the things that you're watching or your relationships or money, whatever it is. How can you become more like Jesus by giving those up and serving him and fully surrendering yourself like Jesus does here in verse 46? With his last breath, he surrenders fully to God's will. So I just want you to think about those things. But that's all I really have for you today. I've really enjoyed getting to do these with you. Sad that they're over, but I'm looking forward to whatever we're going to do next. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at life groups in person very soon in September. I miss you guys. If you're a junior high student, make sure you join us Wednesday for our live audience. And if you're a high school student, make sure you join us on YouTube Live on Wednesday. We'll see you guys then. I'll talk to you later. Bye.